Hi everyone, welcome to our Wednesday TNT. Thanks to those people that came to say hello to me yesterday down at 5 Star Marine, and thanks to 5 Star Marine for their ongoing support of the program. Great to see all those boats out and about and those people who are going to have a great day out on the water. And looking out the windows, I think we're going to have another great day. So bring on all this great weather. Now, also, thanks to all those people who have been busy in the comments section. I think any time we mention the words COVID or China, it certainly arcs up a particular quarter of our community. And some of them get quite vociferous about their thoughts on the matter. When it comes to straight out racist comments, I will delete those. But otherwise, obviously there's quite a lot to be said about this issue. And whether we like it or not, this issue is making headlines around the world. So we'll start with that in mind, and we go to the BBC. China COVID, Beijing criticises political rules for its tourists. And the story says that the Chinese government has suggested the travel restrictions imposed by several countries on Chinese arrivals are politically motivated, and warning that it may retaliate. Now, I think there's up to 10 countries at the moment that have said they're definitely going to impose some sort of restrictions on Chinese travellers. Thailand at the moment hasn't made that decision. More about that soon. The US, India and the UK are among the nations that have introduced mandatory testing. We also mentioned yesterday that I think there was about 7 or 8 other countries down the bottom there. And there are fears that cases and deaths are being vastly underreported. Again, we'll go to a story specifically about that a bit later. China's last daily COVID update on December the 24th reported fewer than 5,000 cases, but some analysts claim the daily caseload is already over 2 million, could peak at 4 million this month. Well, we need to know what these sources are, according to some analysts. It's all very well for people just to throw mad numbers in the air and then get the media to report them. And China's probably not helping by saying that there's only 5,000 cases. And heaven forbid, the last report coming on December the 24th. So there needs to be a lot more transparency, both from the media and these people who are quoting sources, because a lot of people are taking these numbers as set in stone and rambling on based on those numbers. Let's go to more in that story. A lack of data and China's announcement that it was easing curbs on travel from the 8th of January led to more than a dozen countries announcing COVID testing. And down the bottom there, a spokesperson for the Chinese government was firmly opposed to attempts to manipulate the epidemic prevention and control measures for political purposes, and will take corresponding measures according to the principle of reciprocity. And in the middle there, meanwhile, China has on Tuesday rejected an offer from the EU to supply an unspecified number of COVID-19 vaccines to help deal with the surge in cases. Down the bottom there, we've got the government has so far insisted in only using the Chinese-made vaccines, which have been proven to be less effective than other Western-developed mRNA vaccines against the Omicron variant. I think there's adequate evidence to support that, and I would like to think that perhaps the World Health Organization may help mediate between some other countries who are offering to give some of those better vaccines to help the Chinese at this time. Now going to the front page of the Straits Times, and that's before we go to one specific story, which will be that story there, which is the second story. Let's have a look at those other headlines. US says no cause for China retaliation over COVID-19 curbs. Top WHO advisors called for realistic COVID-19 data from China. We'll check that story out in just a moment. Sam Bankman-Fried pleads not guilty on FTX fraud case. Bullshit. And social media use is linked to brain changes in teen research finds. Plenty of quite interesting stories there on the front page of the Straits Times. But let's go to this second story specifically. And from London, leading scientists advising the World Health Organization say they want a more realistic picture about the COVID-19 situation from Chinese top experts. To the second paragraph, the WHO has invited Chinese scientists to a virtual closed meeting on Tuesday with its technical advisory group on viral evolution to present data on which variants are circulating in the country. Well, it says it's not open to the public or media. I think this meeting, given the situation we have at the moment, and given that I think transparency is what we all crave, that it would be a very good idea indeed for the WHO to make that meeting available to both the media and even the public. More on that story. In December, Reuters reported that the WHO had not received data from China on new COVID-19 hospitalizations since Beijing lifted its zero COVID policy, prompting some health experts to question whether it might be hiding information on the extent of its outbreak. And a spokesperson criticised the imposition of travel restrictions on China by several countries, something South Africa experienced after alerting the world to the Beta and Omicron variants. And quoting that person, one thing we should do 3 years into the pandemic is learn from our mistakes to encourage a country to share more data, the best way to support them and not discriminate against them with restrictions curbing travel. So I think we can see that the world is pretty much galvanized in trying to encourage China to provide some better data, more accurate data, and some greater transparency. Let's just go to what's going to be happening tomorrow as I flick back through my pages. And we go to thaipbsworld.com, and 3 ministries to meet tomorrow to prepare for return on Chinese tourists. And the third paragraph down says that no special measures are to be imposed on Chinese tourists according to the recommendations of a technical subcommittee. Okay, so no special measures, I think I read there. But then the next paragraph says that Chinese tourists will, however, be required to present their COVID-19 vaccination certificates, be advised to wear masks while travelling around Thailand. I think a lot of Asian cultures are still quite happy to wear their masks in public anyway, and should take out health insurance coverage before leaving for Thailand. So quite contradictory statements there from the National Communicable Disease Committee. We'll obviously know more about it tomorrow when the 3 ministries meet. We'll make sure we get that information from that meeting to you, certainly as it pertains to you, as soon as we possibly can. You're watching TNT on a Wednesday, and if you do get a moment, please subscribe to the channel. Now, we're going to be talking tourism because we're obviously in this post-COVID tourism period, and tourism is clearly recovering. I know here on the island of Phuket, between Christmas and New Year, it was just madness, even though the actual numbers were only about half what we used to have in the past. Certainly, the recovery is real, even though looking at the arrival numbers the last couple of days, they're just starting to drop and level off again, which I think is to be expected after the Christmas New Year surge. But I mean, Thailand for many years, really since the 80s, used to lean on the beaches, bars and temples as its central attractions. But now the tourism czars are looking to try and bring that up to date and look forward, which I think is a great idea, because I don't think Thailand can simply just lean on the beaches, bars and temples anymore. So we go to this story from the Bangkok Post. Post-COVID tourism plan gets a green light. And the Cabinet yesterday approved a blueprint for tourism development over the course of the next 5 years, with a plan to push for Thailand to be among the world's top wellness destinations, among several ambitious goals. Well, I think that first paragraph really gives a bit of a false impression of what the story is about. It's a lot more than just wellness, although obviously health spas and professional massage spas are a part of it. Let's go further into the story. Key performance indicators for the plan include tourism contributing at least 25% to GDP. I'm not sure if a higher reliance on tourism is a good thing, given the calamity that caused when COVID-19 struck and the borders were closed. The number being touted most usually of Thailand's contribution to the tourism industry to Thailand's GDP is about 10 to 15% GDP. Moving on, at least 3,000 tourism businesses and tourist spots being certified each year. So this ongoing certification of tourism spots, tourist attractions, is something that the Thai government's trying to implement. Other indicators include tourist spending increasing by 5% per year. I think inflation will probably do that for you anyway. And Thailand being ranked among the top 35 countries under the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Well, obviously, a focus on sustainability and better environmental practices is something that should be encouraged generally. Let's move on to the rest of this story. So there are 4 strategies. We'll go through them one by one. The first strategy is to build resilience in the tourism industry with measures to distribute tourism income and to reduce the negative impact of tourism leakage. What is that? That's when revenue generated through tourism leaves the local economy and instead ends up in the pockets of foreign companies. Well, that's all very well, of course, but on one hand, you're trying to stop this tourism leakage, but on the other hand, the Thai government are trying to encourage investment from foreigners into tourism and hospitality. There's obviously got to be a balance of the two. Now, there are some companies, there's P-Gas I know here in Phuket, which is a Russian-owned company that's built a very elaborate local travel ecosystem whereby people arrive on chartered flights and they get on chartered buses and they go to foreign-owned hotels, etc., etc. And the money in those cases does tend to go back to those foreign countries. So somewhere along the lines there needs to be a balance. But if you do allow loopholes, there are going to be people that are going to take advantage of those loopholes. Now, it says that the strategy is also aimed at promoting a balance in demand and supply. Well, clearly that situation is right out of balance at the moment because we've got a lot of demand, but the supply isn't there. Hotels, and many of them still closed, and many companies simply cannot get staff, something I heard about yesterday again. The second strategy, this is down the bottom, is to develop the fundamentals of the tourism sector to strive for quality in tourism, such as improving safety and hygienic standards. I don't think anybody could disagree with that. If they could just raise the general tone of all tourist attractions, I think that's a good thing, particularly when it comes to safety and hygiene. Now, the third strategy involves improving the tourism experience, such as focusing on promoting tourism that caters to high-end visitors. We hear this high-end visitors over and over again, but I think the magic of Thailand is that it's had something for everybody at every price point, not just for the high-end visitors, and let's hope that does continue into the future. Down the bottom of that paragraph saying that they want Thailand to rank among the top 5 global wellness travel destinations. Well, that's really up to the private sector, I suppose, to provide those sort of wellness attractions. The fourth strategy involves promoting sustainable tourism, which is just nice words. That's really got to come down to investment, maybe even foreign investment, where we can encourage tourist attractions to provide a more sustainable experience. And that doesn't include pictures like this. So that's a photo of Maya Bay taken on New Year's Eve. A bit about this photo. They were complaining back before 2018 that there were up to 5,000 and 6,000 people arriving each day on Maya Bay on Koh Phi Phi Lay. Now, in those days, they used to actually bring the boats right up to the beach, throw their anchors out on the coral, and it was causing a lot of destruction. They closed Maya Bay down. That's okay. Now they've built this track between the back of Maya Bay on Koh Phi Phi Lay. People walk along a track and then they come onto the beach from the back rather than from the front, and they can look out across the bay without a whole sort of cavalcade of boats out there in the middle. So they were saying 5,000 and 6,000 people were too many. Well, one tour operator described the situation the other day as madness, and on both New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, there were reportedly more than 5,000 people visiting on each day. So I'm not really sure whether people have learned anything about sustainable travel in that particular case. albeit they're now arriving from the back of the island. To our next story now, and it says that a death toll from Philippine floods, landslides, rises to 51. This story from Thai PBS World. Poor old Philippines had a rough time this year. And the story says the death toll from recent floods and landslides across the disaster-prone Philippines has risen to 51. The second paragraph, the number of fatalities could rise further as rescuers search for 19 people still missing. And then the fourth paragraph, more than 270,000 people had to seek emergency shelter. So an ongoing emergency there in the Philippines. They've certainly had a very bad 2022 with tropical storms and typhoons barreling through the middle of that archipelago. And it says down here that most of the fatalities have been in the province of Misamis Occidental on the southern island of Mindanao. I love that name, Misamis Occidental. And the Philippines is ranked among the most vulnerable nations to the impacts of climate change. And the scientists warning that storms are becoming more powerful as the world gets warmer. Certainly they've had a rough time with tropical storms and typhoons. There's been more of them and they're getting stronger each year, which is causing real problems for the Philippines. Let's go to our next story, and from the nation Thailand, Nong Bua Lamphu nursery to reopen today, 3 months after the attack. And the sacked policeman killed 36 people using a knife and gun. And today, down the bottom there, 9 monks will perform a religious ceremony at the nursery to make merit for the children lost in the attack. Nursery staff are preparing 68 sets of children's clothes, gym outfits, shoes, socks, backpacks, and mattresses to be handed out free of charge to the first class of toddlers today. The centre will also transport the kids to and from their homes in a school van to prevent any accidents or unexpected events. Good luck to the kids, the parents, and the teachers as they reopen the childcare centre. I know it's quite a controversial situation up there. A lot of people believe that the centre should be demolished, but at the end of the day, that may not be practical. So good luck. Hope they can move on. Now, a slightly bizarre story also from the nation Thailand today, and devotees climb into coffins for Thailand's strangest New Year ceremony. Strange indeed. Every New Year holiday, people pour into Wat Tak Jan, the western outskirts of Bangkok, to participate in a strange ceremony they believe will remove their bad luck and bring good fortune. Devotees of these spooky rites lie in an open coffin with flowers and incense sticks clasped between their wying hands, resembling corpses as they enter the crematorium. I spend most of my life trying to avoid being in a coffin. Here we go, these people getting ready to participate in the ceremony. Buddhist monks then chant prayers over the coffins while those inside devote the merit made to their deceased family members. And there we've got a photo there of the Buddhist monks conducting their ceremony with people lying down there in the coffins. Certainly, I think next time I go to a temple, I might light an incense stick, and that will be it. And that is it for today's TNT. Hopefully you're more up to date with things happening around Thailand. Remembering we've got that big meeting tomorrow in Bangkok where they'll clarify if there are going to be any additional restrictions on international arrivals, particularly people from China. Now, a lot of people writing in the comments section and even emailing me saying, I've bought tickets, I'm coming next week, will they let me in? I don't think they're going to introduce any particular restrictions, particularly if you're not coming from China. So I wouldn't be worried. That's my own personal projection of what's going to happen tomorrow. But let's wait and see what they decide before you've got anything to worry about. I don't think you do. But with that, please subscribe to the channel on your way out. Thanks for watching. We'll do it again tomorrow.